Hi everyone, welcome back to Maximum Attack Rallying. It's Monday, which is video day, and at last I can finally finish making this video. If you saw the video last Thursday, you will know that finally my new steering wheel showed up for my sim rig. Last. This has been going on for absolutely ages. So I'm not going to run through every tiny little step of the process, but basically if you are watching this, this will give you an idea of what it is like to fit a real proper car steering wheel to a Logitech G923 base. I think it also applies to the G920 and G29, but do check the manufacturer's instructions to be sure, but I'm pretty sure they're the same. I'm pretty certain. So I'll just run briefly through the process. There are a few guides which I will I'll try and link to the one that I use. I'll try and re-find it. It's a fairly simple process, to be honest. And I'll also talk about the problems I had and also what it's actually like to use, because I have now finally been able to test it. So let's go through the, should we go through the process? It's been a bit of a saga, to be honest. It's a bit of a saga because I thought I had all the parts. So you buy a little adapter, which I'll put a link to, and I thought it was going to be simple. I had a steering wheel, but the problem is that I had to order the steering wheel from China, because here in Saudi it's quite expensive to have stuff shipped from the UK. And racing steering wheels and that aren't really that common here. So I ordered one and it ended up being the wrong fitment. So I had to wait while I ordered another one. So that was a bit of a disaster. But I think the best thing we can do is go through the process quickly and then get into the issues and some other things to watch out for. So in terms of the process, it's actually relatively simple. It sounds scary because you have to kind of dismantle the controls and sort of expose the circuit board and everything on the Logitech, but once you start doing it, it's not actually too bad. So basically, to begin with, you go on the back of the wheel and you have to undo, I think there's 7 small screws that hold the front panel on. So you just rotate the wheel until you can get to each one and undo those. And then the front of the kind of switches kind of just pops off effectively. And you undo the bolts that hold the steering wheel on, and the steering wheel comes off. It kind of exposes the circuit board. And once you've done that, effectively what you then do is you kind of reassemble the circuit board and kind of switch button pad without the steering wheel in there, is the kind of basic principle of the thing. So you put it back together and you kind of end up with a thing that looks like the Logitech setup, just with the wheel missing, because from there you then attach the new setup, and that, as I said, that consists of a 3D printed, in my case, adapter, and that adapts from the Logitech 6-bolt pattern to a standard racing steering wheel 6-bolt pattern. So this adapter is now bolted in place. I haven't done it up super tight because I was a bit conscious of kind of crushing this. In one video I read, someone said if you do these bolts up too tight, the buttons stop working. So I've tried to be fairly gentle. So in theory, the wheel should now just bolt here. So in my case, when I had reassembled everything, bolted the adapter up, I then came to bolt on the steering wheel, and you could see that it was out by a few degrees. And that was because the bolt pattern on the steering wheel was kind of different to the standard. So I'll show you that. And it's just easier if I show you. It was a bit of a disaster. So here we go, 2 wheels together, and you can see with them next to each other the issue. This is the original. The whole pattern look is different to this one. So I originally thought it might be an issue with the adapter, but it wasn't. So I did some searching online as a sanity check, and I noticed that every other wheel I found had this bolt pattern with the holes kind of at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. I've not managed to find another wheel like this, so I have no idea what this is for or what they were thinking. So that was the solution. The adapter is fine, thankfully. So it should just be a case of adding this and we should be good to go. I will say at this point, I know that this is not a very nice steering wheel. The dish is a bit deeper. It is not a genuine Sabel. I will say I've only bought this for use on the sim. I wouldn't use one of these wheels in a car, because I guarantee if you had a crash it would fold in half. The problem living here is that it's very difficult to get stuff. So if I'd ordered one from the UK, it would have cost an absolute fortune, and I just couldn't justify it, which is a shame, because in the UK you've got people like Motor Mech and others, Rally Design, who make quite good quality steering wheels that are very affordable, but you just can't get those easily here, unfortunately. So had to go for this. Like I said, don't buy one of these and put it in a car. I don't like the fact that it has a brand on it that isn't actually right. It is what it is. So yeah, don't use it in a car, but for my purposes, for a sim, this one will be okay, and obviously the holes will line up, so that's good. So let's put it on and see how the semi-finished thing looks, because there's still some stuff to do, but let's finish this step finally. So one thing I also did at the same time, so I'd done some reading on this, and the issue is if you do this steering wheel conversion, you end up bringing the steering wheel closer to you, which is something we'll come to, but that also brings the steering wheel away from the paddles, so you would have to stretch to reach the paddles. I bought some extensions from the same seller, which I will show you in a second how they fit. It was quite relatively easy, but it is worth bearing in mind. I just wanted to point that out, because if you are doing this and you think, oh, I'll just buy the little adapter thing, bear in mind that because of the way it goes on, it pulls the steering wheel forward. You have to use a dished steering wheel to be able to reach the buttons, because some of the buttons end up behind the steering wheel and they are quite awkward, and that pulls it even further away from the paddle. So you will really need some paddle extensions if you plan on using the paddles regularly. And we have a wheel. So this time the bolts actually lined up, so the wheel has bolted to the hub, and it looks quite fancy, doesn't it? It's going to be really interesting to see how it goes. A couple of things, because this wheel is more dished than the first one, and I was very limited on what I could get. The paddles are maybe a little bit further away than I would like. You can actually get longer extensions, but I went for the medium ones. On reflection, maybe you should have gone for the longer ones, but to be honest, I don't actually use the paddles very much. I mainly use this free AWRC, so I tend to use the gear shifter, because most of the cars I drive would have a gear shifter anyway, so that isn't too much of an issue. I might buy the extended paddles at some point anyway. The other thing I've noticed that I didn't notice before is this wheel on this button here no longer turns. It seems jammed against the adapter. Again, I don't really use that, but that's a bit of a flaw in the design of the adapter, so at some point I might remove it and try and fix that. The big issue is that with the wheel being dished and having the extra thickness of the adapter, has pulled it forward. So right now it is way too close for me. So that's going to be a problem. I could drive, but it would not be comfortable. So I need to fix that, and that is probably where the next step of the modifications comes in. So let me show you what I'm talking about, and maybe we'll have a crack at that. So we are on the floor. You can see, so this, the wheel, if you're not familiar with this next level rig, the wheel base attaches to a flat metal plate, which is adjustable. So there's a wheel thing, like a grub screw type thing under here. So you can rotate this whole assembly to change the angle of the wheel, but you're very limited on being able to move it forwards and backwards. So I need to take all of this off and see how far in this direction we can come. So you've got a gap here. So these little lumps that you can see are where the Logitech fixes to this, because these can be go on a desk as well. So even if I can move this plate, which I'm not sure if I can or not, I can only move it this far, which is 2 inches, and I don't think that's going to be enough, which is a bit of a problem. So what I might have to do is see if I can put something between this plate and the tube and lift the whole thing so that these brackets clear, or I'll check the bottom of the base and see if it's got screw holes so that it can just screw to the base instead, and I can get rid of these altogether, because if I can get rid of these, that will give me a little bit more clearance to move this further forward. But it might be that I end up having to drill some new holes in this metal plate so that I can move it as far forward as I need. So while this whole wheel thing is good, just keep in mind that if you're tall like me, because I'm 6'3", you might have to move all of this forward, and that is one of the drawbacks of one of these obviously fold up things. They're a bit of a compromise, whereas if you've got a fancy rig, you can adjust it a lot more easily, whereas these are obviously not quite as serious as that. But the advantage is they're more compact and they can fold up a bit, and they're a bit easier to live with in some respects. So the next step is going to be taking this off and seeing what we can do in terms of moving this whole setup further forward, and hopefully we can gain some space for my my arms, because I'm not a T-Rex. Okay, so I've just taken the wheelbase off, and you can see I've just loosened these screws. So these are the 4 screws that hold it to the adjuster thing, and it looks like I can move it onto these ones. So instead of being in here, it'll be in here. So I'm going to do that and just see how much difference it makes. It's going to give me an extra couple of inches. Might not be quite enough, but if that isn't enough, we are then getting into the realms of having to get quite creative in terms of engineering. So let's give this a whirl and see how it feels. There, we are back together. I didn't think you needed to see me bolting this back on. So as you can see, this gap down here is now gone. So this plate has moved forward onto the end holes, and the wheel base is now as far forward as it can possibly go. I just need to tidy up all the wires. Obviously I had to unclip those and put everything back together. I've just sat in the seat. It's not hooked up or anything right now. It is better. I would ideally like it to go a little bit further forward, but I have reached the end of the travel allowed by this plate. So I'm not too sure of the best way to do that. The only way I could really do it is by lifting this up beyond this, so it would have to go up by 20 mil, 15, 20 mil, the whole base, so it's effectively sitting on top of this plate and was slid forward, and then I would have to utilize some of the holes and make my own holes in it so that it could be further this way. That's something I might look at doing. So I'd have to take these desk clamps out of it, lift it, and have something sitting on top of this that the wheelbase could then bolt to, that was sitting further forward. I don't think it lifting that 15 or 20 mil would be a huge issue for me, because as I said, I'm quite tall, but having the extra few inches for my arms would definitely be beneficial. So I think that is a future project, but I'll reclip all the wires and then we can give it a test and see how it feels. So I think the big question after all of that, after all this drama and messing around, buying new wheels and all that stuff, what's it actually like to use? So as you saw, I had to move everything. So I had to adjust the wheel mounting on the seat to try and get it further away. That is still a work in progress. I need to go further. So I've now tried it out a bit and played a little bit. I haven't played loads and loads, but I've played a bit. The first thing I realised is how rusty I am. It had been a while since I'd played anyway, and obviously with this delay with the wheel, that meant I couldn't use it while I was waiting for the new wheel to show up. So it had been a long time really since I played, so I was terrible. And what it does do is it significantly changes the way it feels. I think it takes a little bit of getting used to, because the standard Logitech wheel is 200 mil or something. It's tiny, whereas a 230 mil maybe, I think someone said, whereas the wheel I'm using now is 350 mil, which is the same size as you see in a lot of rally cars, so it's a full size car wheel, and that does feel a bit weird to begin with, and it feels especially weird for me because right now it's still too close. I definitely need to find a way to move the whole thing further away, which is going to take something a bit creative, unfortunately, because of the way that my rig is. But if you've got one of these fixed rigs, I'm sure you'd be able to do something about it. On the whole, though, I think it's a big improvement. It definitely feels better, because I think it adds an extra layer of immersion, because that wheel feels more realistic. Certainly if you've driven real cars, I think you will appreciate that it feels more realistic. So it's good from that perspective. I think there are some drawbacks. Chiefly navigating the menus is a lot more complicated, because effectively you're bolting the new wheel to the front of the button pad, and that does make the buttons difficult to get to. In particular on Xbox, you've got the button with 3 lines that takes you into the menu. Is the pause button, isn't it, effectively, when you're in game. That is very difficult to get to. So the wheel that I've now got, as I said, is more dished than I'd originally intended. And while I don't like that because it brings the wheel too close, if it had been less dished, I think that button would have been almost impossible to get to. So that is a problem. It makes it a bit awkward when you're navigating the menus, but when you're in game, obviously you don't notice it because you don't touch the buttons. So I think it's a worthy sacrifice, but it is worth noting. Other thing, in terms of feedback, I haven't noticed a massive difference in the feedback. You could argue that you now have more kind of torque over the motor in the wheel. I haven't particularly noticed. I do wonder if you were going to use it long term, would the wheelbase suffer because the wheel is heavier and it is probably putting a bit more strain on it. And obviously if you move the wheel a little bit, but accidentally, if you put a bit of load on it up and down or side to side, maybe you're putting a bit more stress on the base. So that's worth thinking about. It doesn't bother me too much, but yeah. I think overall, as a conclusion, I think overall it was worth it. I think it has made an improvement. I think you just need to be a little bit aware of how it might affect your setup. Because, like I said, the main thing for me right now is that it's just moved everything too close, and I'm not that comfortable because I feel like I'm driving like a T-Rex rather than having my arms a little bit further out. So I need to find a solution for that, but that might not impact you. But overall, it's okay. There's lots of choice for adapters and things. I do wish that I'd gone for slightly bigger paddle extensions, given that I've now got the dished wheel. But like I said, I don't really use the paddles very much, so it's not having a big impact on me right now. But I hope that was useful for you. I hope it gave you a bit of an insight. Definitely a good step. There is one thing I want to do aside from moving the wheel, and that is you could buy a kit to make the brake pedal feel a bit better, so I might look at that at some point. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. I'm glad I've done it, and we'll see how much more realistic and whether it actually makes me any better at the game, because I think that's the big problem I've got right now. But anyway, I hope you found that useful. I hope it was enjoyable. Don't pay too much attention to me actually driving, because like I said, I'm very bad at the game, especially having not played very much. I definitely need to get back into the swing of things in that respect. But yeah, I hope you found that useful. As I said, check out the links below. That will take you to the kit that I used for the paddles and for the wheel adapter, and also at least one of the original videos I watched. I'll see if I can find all of them for how to actually do it. And obviously if you have any comments, put them below and I will try to answer any questions as best I can. And I think that's it for now. Like I said, we'll have some more updates in the future. I'm not sure when I'll get around to doing the pedal thing. And normal service will be resumed on Thursday with something talking about rallying, probably a Ceredigion preview, because we've got ERC and BRC in Ceredigion in Wales this week, which is very exciting. I'm very excited about that, in fact. And maybe some news about a project coming soon as well, but I'm not sure when I'm going to reveal that. You might have to wait a little bit longer. Thanks as always for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. Hopefully we've tipped over 400 subscribers by the time this video goes out. I also want to say a very big thank you to everyone that's been commenting and engaging recently. I have noticed, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Instagram, on X, I do really appreciate it. It's great to have you guys involved and telling me what you think. I really appreciate that. Small channel, but all of that stuff helps. It helps with the algorithm, I'm sure, so I'm really grateful for that. And I think we'll end there, and I will see you again on Thursday.